In this video, we'll be deep diving into one of my favorite novels of all time, one that revolves around the exploration of the human psyche, societal alienation, and the complexities of identity in a rather dark way. No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. Hey everyone, this is Tuzia. Welcome back to my channel, my little art corner where I try to make drawing videos. Today we're going to talk about No Longer Human. And when I tell you I love this book, I love it. I came across Dazai because I was obsessed. I still am obsessed with the Bungo Stray Dogs franchise. Shortly after discovering that each character in the anime is based on the name of writers and their abilities are their literary works, I found myself in the rabbit hole of exploring that side of literature because I love those characters, I love the franchise, and it was like my love for books and my love for anime in mixed together. I found myself reading Ryonosuke's Akutagawa's Rashomon, Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, and few others authors' work, which were based on these characters. And the only book that I remember being so engrossed and so into during that time was No Longer Human, with its raw and unflinching portrayal of the protagonist's inner dialogues, his thoughts and all. I was both in awe and literal shock as to how dark the themes were of the novel. Just a word before I start this video, I want to put it out there that this is not a critical analysis of a novel, nor do I think I have the qualification to be a literary critic, okay? I'm simply someone who likes talking about things that move me, and the themes of this novel are something that I personally found very, very relatable, and I come to it later. And yeah, just in general, I really love the novel, so I really wanted to talk about it. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive into the world of Dazai's No Longer Human. To give a brief introduction, No Longer Human is a semi-autobiographical novel that explores the themes of alienation, existential despair, and the search for identity. The kanji for the novel is Ningen Shikaku, whose literal translation is human failure. The story is told through the perspective of the protagonist, Yozo Oba, who struggles with a sense of disconnect from society and has a deep-seated self-loathing. The novel delves into the character's troubled relationships, personal failures, and his attempt to navigate the complexities of human existence. In this video, we're going to mainly touch three areas that are related to the novel. One is the charming character of Yozo Oba. The second is the impact of Yozo's story. And the third one is the relevance of the novel to the contemporary society at this point of time. Of course, I will preface again by saying that this video contains a heavy amount of spoilers of the book, so if you're planning to read the book, I suggest you come back after you read it. Please come back. So yeah, let's get started. Yozo Oba, the central character in the novel, is a deeply complex figure whose life unfolds in a profound exploration of alienation and self-discovery. From an early age, Yozo grapples with a pervasive sense of loneliness and an inability to conform to societal norms, adopting a mask of humor to conceal his inner turmoil. We constantly find him saying he's being a clown, a jester, in order to fit into the society, and that if they knew who he really was, they wouldn't accept him. His pursuit of identity leads him through destructive relationships that are marked by dysfunction and tragedy, and escapism and self-destructive behavior serve as these futile attempts for him to numb his pain. Yozo's artistic pursuits provide a glimpse into his emotional world, but societal expectations just exacerbate his inner conflicts. as the book progresses, Yozo's journey just goes downhill. It's like, it can't get worse than this. And then it just proves to you that you might as well assume that you'll find God than to live on that assumption. The novel unveils the tragic trajectory of Yozo's life and shedding light on the profound impact of societal expectations and the inherent struggles of finding meaning in a seemingly different world. Now, Osamu Dazai does the clever thing of making this character, whose life is saturated in alcoholism, drug abuse, and women, garner sympathy from the readers, like us. Just a trigger warning, but there is a part in the book where we find Yozo seeing his own wife being sexually assaulted by a neighbor and does nothing about it. But the helplessness and the hopelessness and the despair that has saturated our minds while we're reading that book just makes us as disconnected with that incident as the character himself in the entire book. If you see Yozo from like a third person's perspective, it would be hard to think that you would ever look someone like him in the eye. The very thing that Yozo is very much afraid throughout the entire book. Keep in mind that the book in itself is a semi-autobiographical novel of Osamu Dazai's life, but the way we are the observers of Yozo's most candid and darkest thoughts as he lays his vulnerabilities out, we cannot help but empathize with the tragedy that unfolds. He becomes a rather charming character in the world of the story and subsequently in our minds too, and that doesn't really in any way pass the things that Yozo has done, but it certainly shows that what drives his self-destructive behavior, and it gives us a deep look at his psyche. When we see someone like Yozo, again, I like to preface that when we see someone like Yozo in real life, right, we wouldn't want to associate with him. But when we are deep into his psyche and we're seeing the world in the way he is, we can't help but empathize. And I think that is one of the most beautiful things that Osamu Dazai has done to the readers. He has made Yozo he has shown Yozo in a rather charming sight. And I'm not saying charming in like any good sense, okay? I mean, like, he's charming in a sense that he's able to garner sympathy regardless of what he's done throughout the book. And again, human suffering is kind of universal, and I'll come back to it in the later part of this video. And I think that is the reason that we find, empathizing with Yozo, we'd be like, oh, like, poor guy, right? And yeah, I think that is very, very clever on Dazai's part. Osamu Dazai is No Longer Human maintains a remarkable relevance for its candid exploration of mental health, resonating with the ongoing discourse of a psychological well-being. The themes of loneliness, wanting to be accepted, searching for who we are, and where we stand in society is so universal and fundamental. We all have done it. Become jester so we could be liked or we wouldn't make someone else uncomfortable, and a lot of us being scared of our true authentic selves as we try to conform to what is deemed desirable in the society. And that's what Osamu Dazai capitalizes throughout the book, exasperating it by adding layers of self-loathing and twisted narratives of self and the world around self. The novel delves into the tension between individualism and societal expectation, offering insights into the complexities individuals face in navigating personal identity amidst prevailing societal norms. What makes a novel so compelling is that Asian writers often have a very unique way of telling stories, being very open and honest about their feelings. Dazai is pouring his heart out onto the pages, showing all his emotions without holding back. The story is oftentimes intense and personal, with rough edges and seams that reveal the beauty in being unashamedly real. What's particularly powerful is how they talk about mental health. It feels so relatable and true. You know, the struggles and the emotions that is described while he's writing the book is so deeply moving and so deeply universal and so deeply like relatable that we can't help but like the novel. Osamu Dazai's No Longer Human is still relevant in 2024, just like it was in 1948 when it was first written. The book talks about things like feeling lost, dealing with society's expectation, and struggling with emotions, which are still big issues today. In a time where a lot of people talk about mental health, the way Dazai shows the main character dealing with tough feelings is actually pretty relatable. The book's themes about figuring who you are, dealing with loneliness, and how society can affect a person are just as important as they are now when they were back then. No Longer Human, in contrast to its title, continues to be a powerful and timeless story about what it means to be a human. Truly raw emotions that are just bleeding into the pages, and it just rattles our senses completely. One final personal note. When I was writing this script, there was a particular person in my mind, and I couldn't help but think about the paradox of people with self-destructive tendencies. A lot of us have someone in our lives whose activities do hurt us, and we're stuck in this loop of thinking if they deserve the empathy and how far we're going to go to accommodate them in our lives. But things like this are rarely black and white. People who push other people away are oftentimes dealing with so much within themselves. And while that does not excuse anything destructive people do, the fact that they are suffering somehow makes it easier to forgive them so that we as people can be set free. We all are the outcome of our environment. The nature versus nurture argument is long outdated, and if you are angry at someone who is destructive, who's hurt you, don't let that anger consume you. And that's where perspective plays a huge role, and so does validation and emotional regulation. We all run through yozo oba at least once in our lives, one way or the other. What helps when we do run into these people is being open, showing compassion, and remembering that feeling that you aren't human is also a very human thing to feel. If you like this video, do remember to subscribe and like it. If you want to have discussion on No Longer Human, the comments are always open. Again, when I come back to the community, I'm always met with a lot of love, and I'm very, very grateful for all of you every day. I cannot promise the frequency of uploads, but I think I've reached a point where I know and I'm starting to see the direction of my art journey, and I hope these kind of videos come more often. So yeah, thanks for watching. Bye bye.